Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso at thewatchbox.com. Today, we are discussing a 2017 model year launch coming 1 year after the launch of the Presage collection. This is the Seiko Presage White Enamel SPB045 in stainless steel. Now, as you can see, the timepiece is extremely handsome and an unusual combination of affordable pricing and vitreous enamel fired dial. It's 40.5 millimeters in diameter by 13.8 millimeters thick by 47.7 millimeters lug to lug with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Now you throw it on the wrist, and my wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference, and you get a good sense of its size. We'll move as far away as we can so you get a sense of it in proportion. It's a watch that sits nicely. While it's not ultra thin, you can see that it would fit easily underneath a dress cuff, being relatively low slung with a conical bezel. And we'll do a quick down the barrel shot here. I need to do a better job of grasping this leather strap, but you can see that the edge of the lug's nowhere near the edge of my wrist, and from overhead, the same thing. I would recommend this watch for a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters in circumference. Taking a quick look at the hardware and the software, I have to say the strap feels impressive for a watch of this price. It is a very dark, large rectangular scale alligator leather, and you can see it's semi-gloss in finish with a monotone stitch, and then you actually have a folded edge. But unlike most straps where the alligator folds over the edge, here we actually have the calf skin of the back wrapping up from the bottom. You can see it is a brand new Seiko strap, absolutely uncrimped, ungouged, and once again, it's something you don't expect in this price point, but you get a black alligator leather strap rather than the calf skin or textile or rubber you would expect in the sub $2,000 price point. The watch does include another surprise, a full trigger actuated steel deploying clasp. You expect to get a pin buckle at this price point. The case is handsomely polished, as you can see. It's got a vintage look to it, and that's the overall idea. Capture some of the vintage aesthetic of Seiko watches of the 50s and 60s, and this it does quite well. You'll see that there is a conical bezel abutting a generously cambered sapphire over a vitreous enamel dial, blued hands, and about that enamel. Enamel is something you generally see on vintage pocket watches and super high-end modern luxury wristwatches. It's difficult to achieve. You have a glass-based paint that has to be laid down in several layers, each of which needs to be fired with high rejection rates because of the amount of cracking and popping that occurs when the enameled dials go back into the kiln for each hardening cycle. So a lot to love here. I will say this, Seiko enamel dials often show some flaws when there's an aperture in the dial. That is, when there's a date, oftentimes you'll see the limits of this value-based approach to enameling where those date windows are punctuating the dial. And I think it's important to note that on the solid dials that use, for example, a pointer date, you see no flaws, and the look is really that of a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 watch dial. So this is the best way to get a Presage enamel dial. You can also see that there's a lot going on here. We've got 3 hands blued with a lovely needle style seconds hand with a lunette moon inspired counterweight, leaf hands for the hours and minutes, radially arrayed black on white Roman numerals with a watchmaker's 4, and then we've got a power reserve scale. The power reserve is 45 hours, and it is an automatic winding watch, but you can wind it manually if you want to see the power reserve move in real time. And of course, the watch includes subsidiary setting modes, including a hacking or stop seconds function and a quick set system for the date. And you'll note that the pointer date can be advanced quite rapidly to indicate the correct date for where you are and when you are. 29 jewels. This is another nod to history. If you're wondering why that's on the dial when almost no one does that today, the fonts used on the 29 jewel notation is evocative of vintage watches when these fonts would have been more common, and it was also commonplace to declare the number of jewels on the dial side. Now, when you turn the watch over, you can see, surprisingly for a dress style watch, it is 100 meters water resistant, and even in this era of value-priced goods being made in China, this is a made-in-Japan Seiko product. Right underneath the caseback crystal, we have a utilitarian but functional Seiko caliber 6R27B automatic winding. It's a higher beat rate than the 6R15, so this one's a 28.8 beat rate rather than 21.6, so it's a higher beat rate, potentially more accurate. It has the 45-hour power reserve, the stop seconds, the quick set function, the 29 jewels, water resistant down to 100 meters, so if you do put it on textile strap, for example, or a rubber strap, this is a watch you could take swimming without any concerns. Lots to love here, and of course, Seiko being a fully integrated manufacturer, they make everything. They make the case, they make the dial, they make the movement, yes, but also things like the shock protection, the balance, the escapement, even the lubricants used. You want to find another manufacturer that vertically integrated, you might be looking at Swatch as a group, and of course Rolex, impressive company in which to mention a sub $2,000 watch. So reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details of this SPB045.